JK's cold, calculated fury was fully realized in the secluded den. He dismissed YN's tears and pleas, the simple rope in his hand representing absolute control. He forced her to lie on the thick rug. With terrifying efficiency, he used the heavy rope to bind her wrists above her head, securing them to a low fixture on the wall behind the desk. He then tightly bound her ankles, ensuring she was completely immobile, a helpless display of his ownership. "You ran from me," JK stated, standing over her. "You thought pain was a choice. Tonight you will learn that obedience is the only currency here." YN began to weep hysterically, the fear of the physical violation compounded by the dehumanizing reality of being completely bound. JK moved over her, his eyes burning with dark resolve. He did not ask. He simply took. For the next 3 agonizing hours, JK claimed her, physically asserting his dominion over every inch of her body. His actions were relentless, driven by the need to completely erase her rebellion and brand her as his property. YN endured the continuous brutal claiming, her sobs turning into choked screams of pain and despair. The forced intensity and duration of JK's actions pushed her to the edge of consciousness. She was utterly exhausted, trembling and broken. When JK finally moved away, her body was a canvas of his possession. Her neck and shoulders were littered with fresh, dark purple bite marks and hickeys, vivid evidence of his unrestrained claim. The marks were not subtle. They were undeniable stamps of his fury and ownership, replacing the tender skin with bruised, swollen territory. "Stop crying now, YN," he commanded, his voice deep and final. "The consequence is over." He untied her ankles and wrists, tossing the rope aside. YN couldn't move. She just lay there, whimpering, too physically and emotionally drained to even sit up. JK knelt beside her and ran a hand through her sweat-soaked hair, a gesture that felt more terrifying than his cruelty. "This little trip is finished," he informed her, his plans shifting entirely. "Tomorrow, we are going back to Seoul." He stood up, looking down at her one last time. "And when we arrive, we are going straight to the doctor. You have wasted enough time. You will conceive my first child immediately. Do you understand?" YN could only manage a faint broken nod, her body aching with excruciating pain. JK left the den without another word, locking the heavy door from the outside, leaving her alone in the cold, silent room with the aftermath of his vengeance. JK walked directly to the main living area, his expensive clothes slightly disheveled, but his demeanor lethal and completely composed. V was waiting there, alert and anxious. "V," JK stated, his voice flat and businesslike. "Cancel all remaining Paris commitments. Contact the pilot and crew. Get ready. We are leaving for Seoul first thing tomorrow morning on the private jet." V nodded instantly. "Understood, boss. What about Mrs. John?" "She is resting," JK replied, a dark smirk touching his lips. "Ensure her clothes and luggage are ready. And inform the house staff that any questions regarding my early return or Mrs. John's condition will be met with immediate termination." Absolute silence. V lowered his head. "Yes, boss. I'll arrange everything." As V moved to execute the orders, JK poured himself a glass of water, his mind already focused on the future and the definitive steps he would take in Seoul to ensure YN's complete submission and the conception of his heir. The brief respite in Paris was over. The brutal reality of their life was about to become permanent. The heavy door of the secluded den remained locked throughout the night. YN spent the hours in a state of agonizing trauma, shivering on the cold rug where JK had left her. The physical pain from the hours of violation and the stark terror of his absolute power kept her from sleep. When the pale Parisian morning light finally filtered in through the narrow vent high on the wall, it found YN huddled in the corner, where the wall met the desk. She was curled into a small ball, her arms wrapped around her drawn-up knees, her face hidden and silent. Around 7 a.m., the heavy lock mechanism turned. JK entered the room impeccably dressed and composed, as if the events of the previous night had been nothing more than a minor transaction. YN, he announced, his voice cool and businesslike. Time to get ready. We are leaving for Seoul after breakfast. YN did not move. I said, "Get up," JK commanded, his tone sharpening. Slowly, YN lifted her head from her knees. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen from hours of silent weeping, and utterly vacant. She tried to follow his instruction. She uncurled her limbs and pushed herself up onto her feet. But the immediate sharp pain from the night before was overwhelming. Her legs instantly gave way and she collapsed, hitting the floor with a pathetic, gasping cry. She immediately tried again, pushing herself up with her arms. But her body was too weak, too bruised, and too sore. She managed to stand on one knee before falling back down, her failure confirming the absolute reality of her confinement. JK watched her attempts without offering a word or a hint of emotion. After her second collapse, he walked over to her. He didn't bend down to help her stand. Instead, he scooped her up in a bridal style, effortlessly lifting her slight weight against his broad chest. N instinctively flinched against his touch, but the movement was too painful, and she lay limp in his arms, too defeated to protest. JK carried her out of the cold den, through the quiet halls, and back into the warmth of the master suite. He placed her gently on the center of the plush bed. He immediately called out, "Maid!" Marie quickly appeared, her eyes nervous but avoiding YN's gaze. "Get Madame ready for travel," JK instructed. "A bath, a fresh, comfortable dress, and bring her to the dining table immediately after. I want breakfast served in 10 minutes. He left the room. Marie, with quiet professional diligence, helped YN bathe and dress, avoiding any conversation. The entire process was agonizingly slow because of YN's pain, but Marie remained patient. As she helped YN put on a high-neck silk blouse to cover the worst of the marks, she saw the extent of the damage on her neck and shoulders. A landscape of vivid dark purple hickeys and bruising. Marie's face remained impassive, but her silence was heavy with pity and dread. Marie slowly assisted YN down the main staircase. YN walked like an invalid, leaning heavily on the maid. Marie carefully seated YN at the grand dining table. V was already seated at the table, looking official and utterly strained. He immediately looked up as YN was brought in. He saw her eyes, swollen and bloodshot from crying, and the edge of the purple marks visible even above the neckline of her blouse. V quickly dropped his gaze back to his untouched plate, the sight confirming his worst fears about what had transpired after he left the previous night. YN sat stiffly, unable to eat, the simple act of sitting demanding too much energy. She was silent, only letting out small, ragged sobs that she quickly tried to suppress. JK entered and took his seat, the air instantly becoming tense. "YN," JK said, his tone commanding but reasonable. "Eat, Juggier. You need strength for the flight." YN slowly raised her head, looking at him once, a fleeting look of terror and hatred, before dropping her gaze. With trembling reluctance, she reached for a fork. Her hands were shaking violently, making the silver clatter faintly against the porcelain. She managed to scoop up a small, insignificant amount of food, bringing it slowly to her lips. She chewed mechanically, tasting nothing, her entire focus on controlling the trembling in her hands. She ate barely a few bites, the effort of appearing normal too great to sustain. The silent promise of the flight and the doctor waiting in Seoul loomed over her, terrifying her into a fragile, defeated obedience. The journey to the private airfield was quiet, the silence in the luxurious car heavier than the Parisian morning air. YN was rigid, held securely in place by JK's arm behind her, every subtle movement agonizing. At the airfield, she couldn't manage the steps up to the jet. JK didn't wait. He simply lifted her again, carrying her up the hydraulic stairs and into the opulent cabin. He placed her on a large leather seat near the forward cabin, ignoring the nervous glances of the flight attendants. "Sit still," he commanded, his eyes warning her against any resistance. The cabin was vast and equipped with every luxury imaginable. V took a seat across the aisle, his face a neutral mask, reviewing documents. JK settled in next to YN, immediately asserting control. He pulled the silk blanket over her lap, then rested his arm along the back of her seat, his hand occasionally dropping to her shoulder or neck, a silent reminder of his violent claim and her battered state. E/N remained silent, completely withdrawn. Her eyes, swollen and bruised from crying, stared blankly at the polished wood trim of the cabin. She occasionally let out a faint, shaky sigh, the only sound betraying her internal turmoil. JK poured 2 glasses of sparkling water. "Drink this," he commanded, holding the glass to her lips. YN flinched slightly, shaking her head. "No, please, no." "You are dehydrated, YN," JK stated, his tone brooking no argument. "You will not defy me again. Open your mouth." She hesitated, her body tensing. He didn't wait. He tilted the glass slightly, letting a small trickle of water touch her lips. The compulsion to obey the small command overrode her refusal. She swallowed reflexively, then slowly, reluctantly, allowed him to help her drink a quarter of the glass. "Good girl," he murmured, wiping her chin with a napkin. "Now listen to me." He leaned closer, his voice low and intense, ensuring no one else could hear. "The flight is 12 hours. You will use this time to internalize your mistake. You tried to run. You failed. You caused me inconvenience and you paid for it." E/N finally managed a weak, despairing protest. I just wanted to be free. I hate this. I hate you for what you did to me." JK's grip on her shoulder tightened, making her wince. "You hate me? You hate the man who owns your life. That hatred is irrelevant. All that matters is your obedience. From this moment forward, you will not leave my side without permission. You will not speak unless spoken to." He paused, letting the silence emphasize his next critical point. "When we land in Seoul," he continued, his eyes cold and unwavering, "the doctor will be waiting. There will be no delay. We will begin the process immediately." YN finally met his eyes, a desperate terror flooding her gaze. "No, please, not now. I'm in pain, JK. I can't do this." "Silence," he commanded sharply. "Your pain is the consequence of your actions. It is a necessary reminder of the price of rebellion. You will learn to function through it." He ran his thumb across the largest, darkest hickey on her neck. "This is not a vacation, YN. This is the new reality. By the time this plane touches down, you will have accepted that your only purpose is to be the vessel for my heir. Now, close your eyes. Rest. You will need your strength for what comes next." He settled back into his seat, his presence dominating the space. YN knew the command was absolute. She closed her eyes, but sleep was impossible. She was acutely aware of his body next to hers, his arm a weight of possession, and the looming terror of the Seoul clinic, where the final stages of her control were about to begin. The 12-hour flight stretched ahead of her like an endless airborne prison. After the private jet's landing in Seoul, YN's world had shrunk to the absolute and unyielding will of JK. The swift and silent security convoy delivered them straight to JK's main residence. Night had fallen by the time JK escorted YN upstairs and into the master suite. He closed the door behind them, locking it, sealing YN within the vast, intimidating room. JK forced her through a shower and then issued her first command. JK entered the room carrying a tray with her dinner. "Sit and eat," JK ordered. YN refused, saying she had no appetite. JK ignored her refusal and forcefully fed her a few bites of food. "Look, YN," he said, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. "You cannot even control your hunger. You will eat what I give you. You will wear what I give you. And you will do what I command you to do." He fed her, and YN swallowed out of sheer helplessness. JK moved the tray aside and sat on the edge of the bed. Just then, his phone rang with a group video call notification. The The screen displayed all the BTS members, Jimin, RM, J-Hope, Suga, V, and Jin, looking excited and mischievous. JK picked up the call, his face resolute. Jimin, with an easy smile. Jungkook, you're back in Seoul already? We thought you were in Paris for another week. JK, yes, business needed me. What's this party about? Jimin, joyfully. It's about the celebration. You know the good news about me. I'm throwing a party tomorrow night at my place for all of us to celebrate. I want you and your wife there. JK, forcing a congratulatory nod. Congratulations again, Jimin. That's welcome news. RM, teasingly. Welcome news indeed. But you know, JK, you got married. The spotlight is on you now. Hurry up and give us the next big announcement. Suga, deadpan. Jimin beat you to the finish line, didn't he? We've been patiently waiting for the Jeon heir. When are you giving us your good news now? J-Hope, chuckling. Yeah, JK. You're the most powerful mafia boss in the country, controlling everything, and yet you can't manage to produce a simple heir. What's the hold-up, boss? Jin, joining the fun. Is there a problem, Jungkook? We should send you a handbook. Hearing the barrage of pointed teasing, JK's jaw tightened dangerously. His gaze shot from the phone to YN. She knew the pressure was entirely on her, and instantly dropped her head, terrified by his immediate, silent fury. JK quickly controlled his expression and focused back on the call. We will be there tomorrow night, he said coolly, his voice containing a hard edge. And our good news will come when the time is right. We don't rush things. Send me the details, Jimin. Jimin. Fantastic. See you tomorrow, brother. Bring our sister-in-law. JK cut the call. He instantly threw the phone onto the bed and turned his full, terrifying attention to YN. His eyes were now dangerous and resolute. You heard them, JK whispered. Your task is clear, and the expectation is immediate. Tomorrow you will go there with me. You will act like a happy wife who is eager to conceive my child. If anyone suspects tomorrow night that you are unhappy or unwilling to fulfill your role, your punishment will be worse than Paris. The silence that fell after the video call was absolute, broken only by the frantic hammering of YN's heart. JK's command, unwillingness will result in a punishment worse than Paris, reverberated in the air. He made good on his threat for obedience that very night. He did not tie her. He did not need to. The terror of the previous day and the exhaustion from the long journey ensured her absolute stillness. JK spent the night claiming her, his actions a relentless, possessive assertion of his ownership, making it brutally clear that her body was merely a vessel for his needs and his heir. YN endured the physical ordeal with only stifled whimpers, conserving her energy for the performance required of her the next day. When morning arrived, the air was cold and sterile. YN was completely depleted, her body aching, but her mind was fiercely focused on the single goal: survival. JK rose, immaculate and composed, as if the night had been a restful sleep. I have work to attend to, JK stated, standing over the bed as he adjusted his cufflinks. He didn't ask how she felt. He simply issued his orders. I will send a stylist and a dress for you this afternoon. Be ready by 6 o'clock. You will not be late. He paused at the door, his eyes lingering on her bruised neck, then down her body. Your performance must be flawless, YN. Do not disappoint me. At 5 o'clock, a stylist arrived with a single garment and a makeup artist, both efficient, silent, and highly professional. The dress JK had chosen was a masterpiece of lethal elegance, a stunning, form-fitting black gown. It was modest around the chest and sleeves, but dangerously sensual elsewhere. The silk fabric fell elegantly to just above the knee on one side, while the other side featured a high, provocative slit that traveled up the thigh. It was designed to showcase her legs with every movement. As the stylist finished, YN stood before the full-length mirror. She looked impossibly fragile yet overwhelmingly beautiful. The dark, high-quality fabric made her skin appear translucent, and the precise application of makeup masterfully concealed the swelling around her eyes and the worst of the marks on her neck, turning her into a vision of sophisticated tragedy. When JK entered the suite at 6 p.m., he stopped dead in his tracks. The control in his eyes fractured for a moment, replaced by a raw, possessive heat. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, his gaze devouring the sight of her. He walked up to her, his hand reaching out to touch the exposed skin of her shoulder, then tracing the line of the provocative slit. "Beautiful," he murmured, his voice husky with desire and triumph. "You are utterly, devastatingly beautiful. YN." His eyes darkened with the thought of others seeing her this way. "Remember, you are wearing this only for me. Every eye that rests on you tonight will be instantly reminded that you belong to me." He escorted her down to the waiting car, his grip firm. The drive to Jimin's mansion was filled with a palpable tension. JK had insisted YN sit pressed against him. As the car sped through the city, JK placed his hand on her exposed knee, slowly moving it up the length of her leg. His fingers deliberately lingered just where the slit of the gown began, occasionally brushing the bare skin of her upper thigh, a slow, private act of dominance and teasing. "This is what happens when you obey, YN," he whispered, his eyes on the road ahead. "You are rewarded with beauty, attention, and my favor. Tonight, I want your performance to be as intoxicating as this dress." YN sat frozen, enduring the agonizing, intimate contact. His touch was a constant, humiliating reminder of his power and the punishment that awaited her if she failed to perform. Jimin's home was filled with a warm, lively atmosphere, a direct contrast to the cold formality of JK's mansion. The entire BTS group was already there, along with a few other close associates. As they entered, YN's eyes immediately fell upon Jimin's wife. YN's heart leaped. Jimin's wife, Suyeon, a friend from their past college days before YN's life took its dark turn, spotted YN and rushed over, her face lighting up with genuine excitement. "YN." "Oh my God, I missed you," Suyeon cried, pulling YN into a tight embrace. YN felt a surge of genuine warmth, the first honest human connection she'd felt in weeks. She hugged her friend back, her voice catching. "Congratulations, Suyeon. That's wonderful news." Suyeon pulled back, her smile warm, but her eyes, trained by their past friendship, were immediately drawn to the slight stiffness in YN's posture and the heavy makeup around her eyes. Before Suyeon could say anything else, JK arrived, his presence a sudden block of ice. He slid his arm around YN's waist, pulling her aggressively and tightly against his side, his fingers digging into her skin. A silent, sharp warning to both women. "Suyeon, my dear sister-in-law," JK said, his voice dangerously smooth. "Congratulations on the news. YN and I are delighted to be here." Suyeon instantly understood. The casual, loving friend she had greeted was now a captive commodity. The forced pull, the possessive grip, and the look of pure terror that flashed across YN's face told the entire tragic story. Suyeon subtly squeezed YN's hand in a gesture of solidarity, her heart sinking. Suyeon, recovering quickly, managed a composed smile for JK. "Thank you, JK. It's wonderful to see you both. I know YN is exhausted from the flight. Would you mind if I stole her away for just a little while? We have some old times to catch up on. Just girl talk?" JK studied Suyeon's face, assessing the request. He saw no threat, only the benign concern of a friend. He knew YN needed to maintain the facade, and isolating her for a brief period might prevent her from breaking down in public. "Of course," JK agreed, releasing his iron grip slightly, but keeping his gaze locked on YN. "But do not keep her long, Suyeon. She tires easily now." "Of course," JK agreed, releasing his iron grip slightly, but keeping his gaze locked on YN. "But do not keep her long, Suyeon. She tires easily now." Once the heavy door of the private room was shut, Suyeon released her breath. She turned to YN, her composure shattering. "YN, what is happening?" Suyeon whispered, her eyes wide with fear and pity. She reached out and gently moved the silk fabric away from YN's neck. Her gasp was sharp. My God, YN, Sooyeon choked out, staring at the dark mottled purple marks that the makeup had failed to entirely conceal. Your neck, your shoulders, these are hickeys, these are bite marks, and you look like you haven't slept in days. What is that monster doing to you? The dam broke, the kindness and concern of her friend, after days of absolute terror, overwhelmed YN. She collapsed into Sooyeon's arms, sobbing hysterically. The dam broke, the kindness and concern of her friend, after days of absolute terror, overwhelmed YN. She collapsed into Sooyeon's arms, sobbing hysterically. YN recounted the whole terrifying story. The forced marriage, the confinement, the brutality of the wedding night, the escape attempt, the public humiliation, and the relentless physical violation, all fueled by his obsession with an heir. She lifted the gown's high slit, just enough to reveal the extensive, horrific bruising on her inner thighs and ribs. Sooyeon stared at the evidence of YN's struggle and suffering, her eyes filling with tears. She gently stroked YN's back, her own sobs mixing with her friend's. I can't believe this, Sooyeon wept, holding her friend tighter. I knew the marriage was sudden, but I didn't know. I didn't know you were living through this hell, YN. I am so sorry. You don't deserve this. YN pulled back slightly, her face streaked with tears. I have to perform tonight, Sooyeon. I have to smile and pretend I'm happy and eager to be his wife, or he promised he'll make my life worse. I don't know what to do. Sooyeon wiped her own eyes, her pity quickly hardening into resolve. We have to think, YN. We have to figure out a way to get you out of that man's grasp. You are my friend, and I won't let him destroy you.